Yes, guys, welcome to the Game Week 17 Deadline live stream. Hope everyone is doing well. We have got just under 2 hours until the deadline, so this is the perfect opportunity for us to go through any last-minute Game Week 17 decisions that you might have. I'm going to go through my team because I'm pretty much locked in, which is unusual to say. Anybody that's a regular on this channel will know that I'm usually a madman running through my team trying to make last minute decisions. It's a bit chaotic. Today, I feel like I'm a bit more zen. Maybe the new year is going to bring a new me, a bit more composure on these streams, but we know we'll probably find a way to panic regardless. So what we're going to go through today is my team. We'll go through some of the key transfers this week, whether they're actually worth buying or not. Is Harry Wilson actually a bit overrated with 1.3 million transfers in? We'll discuss that. Talk about captaincy if there is really a discussion that needs to be had. But most importantly, go through any questions that you guys have and really go into the details on them. Make them as in-depth as you want. This is the time to do so. So get yourselves in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the world. Let me know what plans you have in place. And we can also go through my team as we discussed already. And we can crack on with today's show. I guess we're going to call it today's show. So let me know, guys, what your plans are. I see we got, is it Muin Horses? I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Saying big fan, hope you're doing well, my friend. And Immortal Technique, as always, morning, my friend. But yes, this game week does feel a bit like a difficult one right now in terms of what exactly we want to do with our transfers. Because a lot of us right now are sat there with 4, 5 transfers. Obviously, some have got only 2. And it does put yourself in a position where you feel like you might need to be a bit more aggressive than you normally would do so. And that's something that I've gone down. And I'm going to discuss that in a minute in terms of really what we like to do sometimes is hoard all the transfers back and then keep them for future game weeks. But I also have the argument that we've all been given loads of transfers. And I do think we're in a position right now where if you want to be a bit aggressive on short-term punts, this isn't actually a bad time to do so. Hashir saying, shall I start Richards? Well, let me know, Hashir, in the comments. Who are the other defenders that you own? Who are the other players that you own? Because we need a bit of context on that one. For those that missed it, Glasner's already come out and said the starting 11. It's a bit weird, really. It's almost Mourinho-esque. He's basically said all the team that you can imagine. So a back 3 as normal. Gahey, Lacroix and Richards. Mitchell and Nathaniel Klein right wing back. Remember, Klein is like 3.8 million. So if you're looking for a cheap defender, he isn't actually a bad one to go for. Usual midfield 2, and then a front 3 of Mateta, Pino, and we're going for Nketiah right wing. So Richards is guaranteed to start. It's a fully rested Palace team against a Leeds team that have had some good results recently. But really, I think Richards is one of those players that I would look to at least try and consider starting. TDV Gamer is saying, I can only get Semenyo by using all of my 3 transfers. Is it worth it? Well, TDV, let me know like the combination of players that you'll be looking to sell. Because if, for example, it's players who really you don't want to own in the near future, then yes, I can get behind it. But I also need to remind you that Semenyo is a great player this week, but it isn't a guaranteed route of points. We got to remember that. That is the same for any sort of player that we are bringing in. So if you are buying Semenyo and then you come back to next week and you got 1 free transfer, I'd be a little bit cautious on that because you might want to just go for Semenyo for 1 week. I actually think having multiple transfers available the following week might give you a bit of an opportunity to get rid of him more so than just 1 transfer. Because all it takes is 1 injury this week, and then all of a sudden, you've got your 1 free transfer to address an injury and Semenyo in your team where you might have wanted to sell him already. Hashir, doing very well, my friend. Hope you are too. Enzo to Wilson if budget is lower to bring Semenyo. Enzo to Wilson if budget is lower to bring Semenyo. Yes, so I think first and foremost, for me, I spoke about this in a previous video. I do think Wilson is being a bit overhyped. I do apologise. However, a guy who's playing 90 minutes over the Christmas period on all set pieces, and when we look at the actual fixtures for Fulham, just in the middle there, let me put myself above the screen so you can see that. So Fulham's fixtures are just up here. Forest, followed by West Ham, then Palace, Liverpool, Chelsea and Leeds. So I don't think the Fulham fixtures are incredible, I'm going to be honest with you, but Is it a guy, like we said, who's got guaranteed minutes on all set pieces and decent underlying numbers? It is. So, yes, I don't think you need to rip up your team to bring in Semenyo. I think if you need to have that position of Enzo as a starter in your team, I think Harry Wilson is absolutely fine. I think he's going to tick over nicely. A player that I am looking at, but I'm going to be honest with you, every game week that passes is a reason not to buy him. So I still think there is a good entry point this week against Forest, but I do think Forest is still a good side. But then afterwards, if you look at it, then you have got West Ham away, fine. But do you want to buy him with West Ham away, followed by the fixtures that we can see? So that is the one thing that we need to consider over that period, really. Charlie saying, hello Nacho, hope you're doing well, mate. I have a benching headache and I need to bench one of Thiago, Raul, Bruno Fernandes or Minter. Well, first and foremost, you don't bench Bruno Fernandes in any given game week in any given moment. That has to be your mindset with Bruno Fernandes. He has too many avenues to points and his minutes are too guaranteed. I think if you're not going to sell Thiago, you've got to start him. I don't see a world where Thiago's benched and he comes on for the last 20 minutes against Wolves. I think it is either he starts or he doesn't get any minutes. So I would start Thiago then. So then really it comes down to Minter versus Raul Jimenez. And just because Raul Jimenez played during midweek, I'm going to favour Minter. Sunderland are a good team, don't get me wrong, but they've just come off the back of that big win. And anyone that's played football before, those highs can get you really high. And sometimes it can be difficult to get yourself up that much again for the following game. I also think Brighton are a good team, should have scored a couple of goals against Liverpool. And Sunderland have lost a few players going to the African Cup of Nations. So if we just get the site up a minute, because I know they've lost players, I don't really know the extent of it. So if we just bring up Sunderland a minute. So players that they have lost to the African Cup of Nations, again, it might not be a huge amount, but they have lost, not him. So who have they actually lost here that people are talking about? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It doesn't really look like they've lost many players to the African Cup of Nations. Oh, so Mandava, who has played every single minute of every single game since game week 9. So again, I don't know Sunderland players super detail, I'm going to be honest with you. But it does look like they have lost a few players. So they've lost Ronaldo, as we know. They've also lost Siddiqui, who has played significant minutes. Again, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not analysed Sunderland each and every week, so I don't know what the influence of Siddiqui is going to be on the Sunderland team. But any player that has played significant minutes, I believe is going to impact them negatively. That is just the way it views. Traore as well, obviously not available for them. Another player that has started the last 2 games and been a heavy minutes pick since game week 1 it seems. So they are losing quite a lot of players. And also Talby, a player that has also started some games. The squad depth isn't huge. Have they lost more? Wow. He obviously hasn't played any minutes. Okay, they got quite a few players who are going on AFCON. So that is why I think Minter is not actually a bad play this week. I think they are going to be slightly weakened. And they're also coming off the back of course, that great win, which is also going to take a lot out of them. So to answer your question, I would bench Raul Jimenez. I also think Forest are a good team. Morning, who would you do? Chow, Rodon, or Anderson to... Well, what's the first part there? Chow... Is it Chow to Rodon? Let me know on that one, mate. I have 2 Arsenal defenders and Nuno. Oh, she's coming back to the original one, has she? So you said, should you start Rich as well? I definitely would start both Arsenal defenders and Nunes ahead of Richards, 100%. Alex is saying, does he bench Bruce or free hit? That all comes down to your team. I would need to know who your bench actually is to recommend whether to bench boost or not. But in terms of a free hit, I don't think this is the week to free hit personally. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think this is the week to free hit. If we take a look at the fixtures right now, Game Week 17, I don't see huge upside, I'm going to be honest. If I look at them here right now, who are you going to target? Bournemouth, triple Bournemouth, that's good. Triple City, but you probably already have double in Haaland and Foden. Otherwise, I think it's pretty poor. Now, if you look at game week 18, I think there are some opportunities here. Firstly, I think you just get your Arsenal and hope they beat Brighton. I think triple Liverpool is a huge differential against Wolves, so I think that's quite a nice pick. But again, the rest of the fixtures aren't fantastic. So then we cast an eye on game week 19. I think Newcastle could be a really nice differential for you on a free hit in game week 19. Chelsea's Cole Palmer could be a pick at home against Bournemouth. I think Man United triple up against Wolves could be really interesting for you. And also triple Liverpool against Leeds. So I've got hiccups. So I think game week 19 is actually a really nice week for a free hit. I think you could triple up on Man United, on Liverpool and Newcastle, and go really against the grain in that week alongside the usual suspects in that team. I also think you could avoid Arsenal defence altogether against a Villa team that are one of the most in-form teams in the league right now. So that's probably where I'd be looking in terms of when to play your free hit. The bench boost comes down to your specific team and what it does look like, I'm going to be honest with you. Thoughts on these moves? Burn Eze and Thiago to Calafiori, Tavernier and Ekitike. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I actually really like those moves. Thiago, of course, selling him is not a great position if he does play against Wolves. So you are taking a huge risk. But do I prefer Ekitike over the next three? 100%. So I can get behind those moves, Ollie, I'm going to be honest. But just know you are taking a bit of a risk with Thiago, that's all. Eze is a huge minutes risk over this Christmas period. We've seen that clearly. Purple Snake saying, do you think Thiago will start? If not, who on my bench should I replace him with? Cash, Virgil van Dijk or Szoboszlai? Well, I'm going to be honest. We don't really know the status of Szoboszlai. And Aston Villa's game this week is not incredible against Man United. Man United have been scoring goals, of course, but they don't have Abuemo. So I think Thiago probably does start. I'm just going to take a bit of a punt. I do think he does start. So I think I probably would start Thiago and have Szoboszlai first sub, probably. Morning, mate. Trying to plan in free hit next week. Best 1 week punt at 6.6 million to replace Szoboszlai. To replace Szoboszlai, I think Szoboszlai would actually be part of your free hit in game week 18. I'm going to be honest with you. I have Thiago, Welbeck and Dewsbury Hall with 2 free transfers. What do I do? Well, in that scenario, I think what I will be doing is keeping Thiago and asking myself, with Dewsbury Hall, is there an easy route to another player? And I think someone like a Harry Wilson would be the route I would go for. I think he is a good pick if you've got the money available. Right, what I'm going to do right now is just go through my team, give you guys a bit of an update on where we are landing, because I made some moves. So a couple of days ago, I saw the price changes of Enzo and also of Semenyo, and I believe also there was another price change that kind of influenced my decision making. So I've ended up making 2 moves. Now, as you can see, I'm ranked 41k, 42k if you round it up in the world, and I had 4 free transfers available to me. And in my position, I was thinking to myself, actually, shall I just keep my transfers in my back pocket, go to 5 free transfers in game week 18 and really try and be a bit different with my moves? But looking at my team based on last week, let me just show you it. This was my team in game week 16, obviously a decent week, triple captain Saka, but I had Enzo in my team, and I was a little bit concerned about his game time going forward from his returns over the future. When you actually look at the fixtures coming up, Newcastle away difficult, Villa difficult, Bournemouth's not too bad, then Man City. Didn't really like Enzo as a pick going into this game week. So when we come into game week 17, really, what I could have done, and it was a very, very feasible play, is just bench Enzo, play a back 4 of Timber, who I originally had, Virgil van Dijk, Richards and Anderson, a midfield 4 of Foden, Bruno, Minter and Saka, and a front 2 of Haaland and Thiago. And that is absolutely fine. I do not think that is a bad play at all. But, as I said, the fact that they've given us 5 free transfers this season for the African Cup of Nations, I was just in a position where I thought to myself, let's be a bit more aggressive with the moves. Because if I use 2 free transfers in game week 17, which I have done so, I'm going to come back to 3 transfers in game week 18. So when a lot of people are like, trying to be a bit more safe and conservative and roll to 5 free transfers, I think that is just like one of those scenarios where if I said to you right now, you've got 3 free transfers, we've played the game for many years now where you could only have 2 maximum. 3 transfers is loads. I think 5 for my team, I'm going to be honest with you, is just unnecessary when I could attack this game week in isolation. So, what I ended up doing, I got rid of Timber. Now, I spoke about this in a previous video. I don't love the move. But for this particular game week, do I think Timber and O'Reilly have the same ceiling? Pretty much, yes. I think O'Reilly probably has a slightly higher ceiling based on his attacking output. So I think Timber to O'Reilly is a upgrade. Sideways move, possibly not a downgrade. I'm going to be honest. So I felt O'Reilly was as good of an upgrade in this team. And when I look at his fixtures coming up, fantastic fixture against West Ham, as we know. Then he's got Nottingham Forest away. Sorry, you can't see this on your screens. But he's got Nottingham Forest away. And then afterwards, he's got Sunderland. Again, a team that have lost a lot of players to the African Cup of Nations. When we take a look at Arsenal's fixtures coming up, we can just compare them here. So Arsenal coming up, we've got Everton. I think that will be a clean sheet for what it's worth. Then they got Brighton. Not a great game, but again, I think Arsenal are a good enough team to keep them out. Then they got Aston Villa, one of the most informed teams in the league right now. That's tricky. Then they've got away against Bournemouth, which again, I think that is not a guaranteed clean sheet. Then they got Liverpool. So I actually think the run of fixtures is not unbelievable. And when I'm trying to take on double Arsenal, I think that is the time to do so. Whereas when I look at Man City, I honestly don't think Man City are as good for clean sheets. West Ham, then Forest and Sunderland, Chelsea, Brighton. So you can see what I mean. I don't think the fixtures are better for Man City, and I think Man City are a worse team in terms of clean sheet percentages. But what that allowed me to do with that move is upgrade Enzo to Semenyo. And really, when I look at this game week, what is the week that I think to myself, I really want a piece of that? And it's going to be the Bournemouth-Burnley game. Burnley have been so bad. They haven't really shown that they can actually keep teams at bay. They conceded 3 goals to Fulham at home. So I think this is a brilliant fixture. And those moves allowed me to bring in Semenyo. So that pretty much is my team. And I'm confident that I'm happy to keep Thiago because I've got Anderson first sub. So worst case scenario, Anderson comes in and does that. So that's why I made my move. So if we just come into a bit more of a long-term planner a minute, just to give you a bit of an idea on why I made the moves longer term. So that's my team for game week 17. When we come into game week 18, as we discussed, I've still got 3 transfers. So I'm still in a really, really good spot. When we look at my actual team, we've got Raya at home against Brighton. Again, I think Brighton are a good team, so I don't think that's necessarily a guaranteed clean sheet. Minter will move to the bench, and the rest of the team picks itself. But when we come down to the actual fixtures for this particular game week, and we ask ourselves, what am I missing for game week 18? Well, Forest City, I'm happy just to kind of like, I've got my triple up. Arsenal Brighton, I've got my double up. I don't want to go any more. Brentford Bournemouth, I've got Thiago and Semenyo. Liverpool Wolves, of course, is a team that I haven't got any investment in. We'll talk about that in a minute. But otherwise, I don't think there is any other fixture that I'm looking at thinking, oh my God, I want a piece of that. So when we actually come up to it, I got 0.3 million in the bank. If we get to game week 18 and Szoboszlai hasn't got his yellow card, because remember, Szoboszlai is 1 yellow card away from a suspension. So that could happen. So what I'm trying to say is this. I could have very easily rolled my transfer in game week 17 to 5 free transfers with a plan of getting Szoboszlai in game week 18. If he gets a yellow card in game week 17, I then can't buy Szoboszlai in game week 18, the reason why I rolled my transfer. And all of a sudden, let's say Isak's back and available, and Ekitike's minutes are then really risky in game week 18. I'm then asking myself, what am I doing? Rolling my transfer to 5, and I haven't attacked game week 17. So that's why I made those moves in that sense. And then game week 18 looks like this. And then if there is a scenario where Szoboszlai is available and he looks incredible, then I use one of my 3 transfers. I sell Semenyo. I bring in Szoboszlai for the home game. And I ask myself once again, who else am I missing? Well, everyone's talking about Everton. Well, yes, Everton against Burnley is a good fixture. So there is a world where I ask myself, you know what, I might actually make the move. I might sell somebody here, but I don't think it's desperate. And then I get to game week 19 with still 3 transfers available, 1.1 million in the bank, and the rest of the team kind of picks itself once again. And then when we look at game week 19, things can change between now and then. But if I come down to game week 19, the fixtures, Newcastle against Burnley, that could be maybe a possible week to attack Newcastle. When we look at their fixtures coming up in game week 19 beyond, Burnley, Palace, Leeds, Wolves. This is a great time to go to Newcastle, but we need to understand who the Newcastle players are to buy. But I want to put myself in a position where I've got 3 transfers in this game week to be like, cool, I now know who to go to. Let's sell some players and go to those particular players. Forward, for example, I might get rid of Thiago and bring in Voltemada or Vissa if they look like the go-to players. So that is a bit of a rundown of why I made those moves. I'm really happy with the decision. Also, it's worth noting, I may also have a plan in place to bring in Cunha in this team if I want to go there. So that's why I made the moves. I'm pretty happy with the team. Let me put it back up just so you've got it as context. I'm not making any more moves. Captaincy, of course, on Erling Haaland. Let's take a look at some questions because I feel like I've now covered off a fair amount of that. So we should be in a good spot now. So, Spursy, morning pal. If Haaland is 200% ownership, should I hope he blanks if I just captain him? And would it be a good idea to differentiate due to that 200%? Yes. So Spursy makes a good point here. And a lot of people, it's rude of me to say don't understand it. It's just one of the sort of things where it's quite complex. So when we actually look at the ownership right now for Erling Haaland, you can see here that he is owned. Well, sorry, you can't see it on your screens. He is 73% owned in the game. So what happens with this is if somebody captains a player significantly, their ownership goes above 100%. That's just natural because everybody gets double the amount of points. Therefore, the effective ownership is over 100%. But because this game week is going to be heavily triple captained by a lot of people, that means that the ownership might surpass 200%. Now, if an ownership goes above 200%, then there are problems because if you've just simply captained a player, your ceiling is 200%. So if Erling Haaland is 250% owned, and that has happened in the past, you're actually getting negatively hit by him by 50% effectively. So it's not a good position to be in. However, do I think there is a player that could outscore Haaland and go against his captaincy? I'm going to say no. I think this is a week where you simply captain Erling Haaland and you almost pray blanks. So for anybody right now that is not triple captain in Haaland, but you're simply captaining him, you're hoping Haaland blanks for your overall rank's sake. That is the way it works this week. Not a nice position to be in, but it is just kind of the way it is right now. It's worth noting, I don't think he's going to be like 250, 260% owned. So I think he could be like dead on 200 possibly, because I think the triple captain has been used by quite a lot of managers. So then it might only just slightly negatively impact us. And to be fair, let me get a poll in a minute to see in terms of, if I put in here, are you using a chip this week? Free hit. I'll put triple captain. If I put also, what's the other one that could get used this week? Bench boost. I don't think anyone's got a wild card left. If I put bench boost, and then if I put the last poll as used all my chips, sad face. I'm one of those that have used all my chips. Just let me know. This would be a good context right now to see. Now, look, we've only got 60 people in the chat, so it's not like this is going to decide the 11 million people that are playing FPL. But if only like 10% of people have got their triple captain left and are using it this week, that might be an indicator, you know, of, oh, actually, like it's not going to be as big as what we were anticipating this week. I still think it will be over 200% for what it is worth. Yeah, so Ollie makes a good point there. If you're going to go against Haaland, captain, hypothetically speaking, if Haaland blanks and your captain, let's say it's Phil Foden, does well, you are going to get monster gains. You are going to do incredibly well this week. But on the flip side, you're talking about how captain in Haaland is not amazing if he's over 200% owned, but you're at least going to have the majority of those points to go against the triple captainers. If Haaland, let's say, scores 10 points, you'll get 20 for captain, triple captainers get 30, of course. So that's 10 points against you. If you go against that and your captain gets 2 points, 4 combined, your rank is literally going to get obliterated. And it just is such a risky move. to go against Haaland. It really is. Get Bruno G and Chalobah. Probably should bench Chalobah. Yes. I probably still think Newcastle got enough to score against Chelsea at Newcastle, yes. So I probably would bench Chalobah in that scenario. But I get it. Chalobah's been in incredible form recently. Roro, thoughts on Minter this week? I'm going to say, I'm not loving owning Minter right now. He is going to be a sell in the foreseeable future. If we look at his numbers recently, 0.57 against Liverpool, decent. 0.07, 0.31, 0.13. He isn't fantastic. But as we've spoken about, have they got loads of players out of Sunderland due to the African Cup of Nations? Yes, they do. So it's more of a play of just hoping Minter does well, because you might be in a position similar to myself where, you know, that's not great against Sunderland. He then has Arsenal, which again, not incredible, but then he's got West Ham and then Burnley. So I'm hoping, like if you take my team as an example right now, the reason why I've done my move this week of bringing in Semenyo is that I'm really comfortable using him as kind of like the guy to dip in and out of the team. So like, if you can do what I'm doing here and almost, you know, use Semenyo as the cash cow for your midfielder. So like, for example, bringing in Szoboszlai, and then let's say Szoboszlai gets his yellow card and he's out for the Leeds game. You know, you could do a couple of moves and get rid of Szoboszlai to Cunha and downgrade somebody else. You might be able to just kind of float Minter in your team for a couple of weeks, and then really game week 21 is the week where Minter is going. Of course, I might get rid of him before, but I got to remember that game week 20 is a home game against Burnley, which is the money fixture. And I think my team could kind of get to game week 20 with using other players to sacrifice along the way. So there is value in Minter, but I do also think that he's one of those that you could quickly just get rid of and not really bat an eyelid. I do think Wilson is a better pick than Minter over the next few weeks. I just think Wilson's avenues to points, routes to points, are so much better than that of Minter. Minter is literally dependent on assists in open play, which is not great. That's not a great way to look at it. If I have Gordon, should I bench him and start Raul or drop Raul this game week? Difficult, because Raul's minutes are going to be quite hard to predict because he played midweek, of course. But I also think Gordon's minutes are quite hard to predict right now. Visser's back. We know Barnes is getting minutes in this team. So really, I think I would almost be tempted by Raul Jimenez in that scenario. I've wasted my 5 free transfers. That's fine. Would you take a -4 to do Rice and Dango for Foden and Wilson? I wouldn't be taking a -4 in that scenario. I'll be asking myself, have I got a good enough bench to just bench Dango this week and do it? Now, in terms of as far as -4s go, then yes, I do like that move. So if you're looking at it long term, then yes, I can get behind that. Should I sell Welbeck for GUI to free up funds to sell Dewsbury Hall for Wilson? I can get behind that. I think Welbeck is going to be a bit of a minutes risk in the future. We're seeing, obviously, the squad being used in that position. So, yes, again, do I think Wilson is like an incredible pick? No, I'm a little bit skeptical on him as a pick long-term. However, do I think that Wilson is way better than everybody else at that price point? Yes, I do. So, for that reason, I quite like the move, but just remember, that's now changing the dynamic of your team. You're now obviously basically dead spotting a forward in your team. Are you happy to do that? If you are, great. Just remember, Ekitike, all these players could become forward options in the future. Someone like a Jared Bowen as well. So just have that in mind when you make that move. Guys, if you haven't already, vote in the poll. Let me know what you're doing this week. 31% of people are using their triple captain this week. 6% are using their free hit. 6% are using their bench boost. 58% of people have used all of their chips. So really, a lot of us are going to be sitting behind a sofa this week, as people are saying. And once again, I still think you captain Haaland this week. I still think that's the way to play it. I just think you have to pray he blanks if you're not triple captaining him. If you're triple captaining him this week, then you pretty much are going to guarantee yourself a green arrow, which is a good scenario to be in. I'm just checking right now to see if there's anything on Twitter regarding news on players, and there isn't right now. So I don't really think much is going on, to be honest with you. Yeah. Cool. Is Hincapié going to play today? It sounds like he probably will. Doesn't look like Gabriel's back. I do think Hincapié's minutes are going to be really, really limited in the future. Basically, when we look at the fixtures here for Arsenal, we got Everton away. I think he plays that. I think he probably plays the Brighton game, but it sounds like Gabriel could be back for the Aston Villa game. So I think there's 2 more game weeks of Hincapié. And then I think if I was a guessing man, I probably would anticipate it to be Timber, Saliba, Gabriel and Calafiori from game week 19 onwards for the foreseeable future. I think once he gets that back line back and available, I think it's go time for Arteta. I think he's going to play that each and every week. And again, with somebody like myself who sold Timber and have got rid of my Arsenal double up, the reason why I've kind of done it as well, it's worth noting, is because I just think Gabriel is the one that I want to own in the future. Now, reminder, Gabriel is actually cheaper than Timber. He's 6.2 million, which makes him quite an appealing pick. Now, if we take a look at the planner right now, the fixtures, there is an opportunity, again, if we look at Arsenal, Everton, Brighton, and then Villa. So the run of fixtures, I would argue, are up against some decent attacks. So I don't think we have to jump back on double Arsenal very, very quickly. But what I'm trying to say is this. If you're in a position right now where you're like, I need to get back to Arsenal ASAP, then if you're like me and you've got a Virgil van Dijk and you're desperate to get back there, do the next 3 weeks of Virgil van Dijk and then go to Gabriel in game week 20. Just get it done. Because then Liverpool got Fulham away, Arsenal, and then they have got Burnley at home, which obviously is a great fixture. But if we were to look a bit more long-term at the fixtures, I don't think you're going to see these because they won't pop up on your screen. I do apologise. But in terms of Arsenal, really, I don't think the fixtures are incredible for them from a clean sheet perspective. But I think that is the route to go. If Arsenal suddenly go back to their normal ways of just locking up teams and not conceding silly goals, I think you could do Virgil van Dijk to Gabriel in game week 20 and just get it done if you're that stressed about it. Selling Burns to Tarkowski, yes, I don't mind that at all. I think Everton is a good route to points. I think Keane's also a good pick. I don't see Branthwaite just getting chucked straight back into this Everton team in the near future. If you got Szoboszlai, I would keep him because even if he doesn't play this week, he'll then be a fantastic option for Wolves next week. James, appreciate that, mate. To start Thiago or Rice, I personally would probably go for Thiago and hope for the best because I think he either starts or he gets 0 minutes. And I think that's the route that I would go for with Thiago. It's worth noting though, James, let me know the rest of your team because I also think Rice is a player that I would quite like to start this week. I'm going to be honest. It probably is a player I would like to start. If I have Gordon, shall I bench him and start Raul? I think I've covered that one off, mate. Didn't West Ham lose 2 fullbacks to AFCON? Yes. So I don't actually think there's a way of kind of like looking at the exact players that have gone to AFCON, but there are some significant ones that have. So if you take a look at West Ham right now, Diouf is gone to the African Cup of Nations. Wan-Bissaka also gone to the African Cup of Nations, and I think that is it. But again, if you are a Man City owner and you've got Haaland with triple captain, boy oh boy, you're in for it this week. You are going to do well, I think. Now, let's just remind ourselves, there has been a world... Oh, God, nearly sold bloody Haaland. Let's just go off that a minute. God. If you do look at the Haaland returns, it's quite a scary prospect. But for those that are not triple captaining, like myself, let's just give ourselves a glimmer of hope. Let's just give ourselves a morsel of hope. So, blanked against Sunderland at home. Blanked against Leeds at home. Just going to skip past all of the mega hauls that he's had. Just going to skip past the mega hauls. Blanked against Spurs at home. I'm clutching at straws here because when we actually look at the rest, he's got a 13-pointer against Bournemouth at home. He's got a 13-pointer against Everton at home. He's got a 16-pointer against Burnley at home. He's got a 13-pointer against Man United at home. So it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good. But there have been occasions where he has blanked. Do I think it will happen this week? Absolutely not. But it could happen. It could happen. Of course, I'm clutching at straws. FPL Real Talks, or Talk Real, saying, just get Harry Wilson, mate. I'm going to be honest, for my team, I don't think it's needed of a transfer. I don't think Wilson needs to come in my side. I think Minter, obviously, I'd prefer Wilson over Minter. He's cheaper, more avenue to points. But do I think it's a necessary transfer for my team? Not really. Best regards from Egypt, bro. Thank you so much, mate. Hope you're doing well. Let me know, Ibrahim, what are your thoughts on the AFCON this season? Are you confident? How is it feeling this season? Would you start this week Rice or Minter? Wow. I'd probably go Rice. I know I'm talking about how Minter's up against a Sunderland team that don't have, they don't have the AFCON players, but still I'm not bullish on Minter, I'm going to be honest. Nacho, is it worth Captain Haaland with his ownership being over 200? Yes, I think personally you still go with that. It is so risky to go against the captaincy. Is Wilson a good player this week? Yep, I still think Wilson is a good buy. Now, of course, every single week that passes, he becomes less and less of an attractive pick, but I still think he's a good option. I can't be against it. FPL Hippie, hope you're doing well. I want Ekatike. Should I sell Raul or Thiago? Well, if you can do Raul to Ekatike, then yeah, all for that. If you can do that as a free transfer. Thoughts on selling Burn to Tarkowski? I've covered that one. I think that's fine. I want Ekatike. Should I cover that one? Rice's Semenyo. Rice's Semenyo is a move that's quite interesting because I think Rice is actually a really good pick for this Christmas period because he's got guaranteed minutes. So I'm not as for that move. But do I think Semenyo outscores Rice this week? Yes, I do. Nacho, do you reckon we are winning today? Oh, mate, I don't know. Obviously ideal that Burns out and also Livramento's out. But you know what we're like? We're just so hot and cold. I think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be a draw this week. Let me know what you think, mate, on the score prediction. Bench Anderson or Mark Gahey? Well, I think it's quite a scary prospect to get bench Mark Gahey because he's just a monster and his ownership's going to be quite big. So it's very difficult for me to say bench Gahey when I'm benching Anderson over Richards. So I probably would bench of the lot. I'd be quite inclined to bench Nottingham Forest Anderson and play Anderson Fulham. I probably would lean towards that. Hunter saying, morning, got my first green arrow since game week 8. We are so back. Love to hear it, mate, on that one. Love to hear it. Yes, so I do think Tavernier is not a bad option. The numbers are fine. His minutes will be good. I just don't really know what's going to happen now. I believe Tyler Adams sustained a knee injury. So anyone that's a Bournemouth fan, maybe let me know in a bit more detail. But does that make Tavernier a bit more of a deeper player in that scenario? But yes, I do think as a one-week punt, anybody against Burnley is a good move. But again, a bit of context about this. I went for the Semenyo move, knowing that I'm going to come back to 3 free transfers in game week 18. If I was in a position where I wanted to buy Semenyo, but it meant that in game week 18, I'm only going to have 1 free transfer, I wouldn't have made the move. It's because I had lots of transfers available and I could be a bit aggressive. The reason why I'm saying that is because let's say someone gets injured in my team like a Bukayo Saka. That is going to be the priority, selling that player as opposed to Semenyo. So just remember, if you're going for 1 week punts, make sure you got a lot of transfers available to you in the following game week to get rid of that player. Because injuries can happen and before you know it, you might be stuck with a player that you don't really want to have. So I'm just seeing if there's anything else on Twitter. I can't see much, guys. it's a weird one because for anyone that doesn't know, what a day of football. You've got Newcastle-Chelsea early kickoff. You've got all these 3 p.m. games. You then got Spurs-Liverpool at 5:30, Everton-Arsenal at 8, Leeds-Palace at 8, all on Sky Sports. Sunday's pretty dead, I'm going to be honest. 4:30, Villa-Man United. And then you got Monday Night Football. So really, your rank will probably be decided by Saturday. Because here, a lot of people have Bruno Fernandes and not many people have Aston Villa. And Man United defence isn't really highly owned. So I don't think rank will really fluctuate much on Sunday. Sorry, I got hiccups again. And then really, Monday is going to be all about Harry Wilson and how well he does. And then also, of course, anybody that has a Nottingham Forest player, which really is few and far between. So I'm going to be honest, by Saturday, this is going to dictate your rank. End of today. So that's a bit stressful. I'm going to be honest, a bit stressful. And I personally am waiting to see if I've got a football match or not today, because if I've not got football, then I can monitor it. But if I have football, then it's one of those where I always finish football, look at my phone in fear of what is happening in that particular game week. Okay, let's see what else we got in the chat, guys. Please do drop any comments in the chat. And of course, if you haven't already, please do drop a like on the stream. Always massively appreciated. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, once again, that is always very, very generous. We're trying to hit 23k before the end of the season. I think we're like 150 off. So if we hit 23k by the end of the season, that would be sick. Best week to use Wildcard, 18 or 19? So Sartha, I'm going to be a bit poor here and say I'm not going to answer it. Now, the reason why I'm saying it is I haven't given it enough thought. So what I will do is I will take a look at a Wildcard 18 in next week's content and deep dive into maybe the pros and cons of doing an 18 or 19 Wildcard and maybe look at some drafts. Because the Wildcard is one of the most powerful chips, it actually would be a little bit like wrong of me to just sit here and be like, this is the answer, and then skim past it, because that could be quite a big thing in your decision making. But just on the top of off the top of the dome, like 18 allows you to get to Liverpool if you want to target them for a couple of weeks. Whereas like if you do it in 19, the Liverpool value kind of diminishes a little bit. So I think almost like I will deep dive into it, but maybe have a look at like the influence of Liverpool and how much you want them on a wild card. If you are like, I need Liverpool, get them in 18, because once you go to 19, you've missed the Wolves fixture effectively. But there's a lot more nuances to it that I should probably cover in a separate video as opposed to anything else. Where am I on the chat here? I want Ekitike. Should I sell Raul or Thiago? And should I buy Cherky or Cunha? So I think if you can do a direct move of Raul to Ekitike, happy days, I would do that. Because I still think Thiago offers value, even though I've spoke about it for weeks. I don't love Thiago as a pick. And I've been a guy that has owned Thiago for probably longer than others. So I've had Thiago since... Christ. So I've had Thiago since game week 11. So people have had him longer, don't get me wrong. I think he's had returns way before game week 11. Like, what was his... He kind of come onto the radar in game week 6, didn't he, when he had that haul. But I've had him since game week 11. So I've kind of experienced Thiago each and every week. And don't get me wrong, he has been a monster for me. Because when you look at it, from game week 11 onwards, 13, like those two 13-pointers alone kind of delivered the goods for me. But have I actually loved owning him? I haven't actually loved it, I'm going to be honest, because I know that penalties have been so important. And also, he's missed a couple of penalties. So his haul could have been so much more. I think it was here against Brighton where he had a last-minute penalty. Like, if he scored that penalty, it wasn't just a 4-pointer. That was going to be like a 13-pointer. It was going to be a monster haul once again. So I like Thiago, but I think he's a little bit overrated, I'm going to be honest with you. So Raul to that makes sense. Cherky, I think Cherky for the next 2 is a delicious alternative. But Cunha is more one that you're waiting for in game week 19. I wouldn't be going to Cunha now. Start DCL or Richards. Wow. How can I deny DCL when he's on an absolute run of form right now? So, I mean, very hard for me to say no to DCL. Yeah, maybe DCL's the play. I will just say this. Palace's ownership is still going to be quite big defensively. So just have that in the back of your mind. That is all. But I don't mind leaning the attacker. Nacho, help. Which player to bench? Rice, Wilson, Thiago, Welbeck, or Bruno Fernandes? So let's just tick off ones that you cannot bench. You can't bench Wilson because his ownership... The ownership this week has been so big and it would just be weird to bench him. So you definitely start Wilson. You definitely start Bruno Fernandes. And if you're keeping Thiago, you definitely start Thiago and you hope for the best. I would say Rice. Welbeck's been very, very in and out of the team. Been struggling with something going into this game week. We know Rice is playing 90 minutes. So I think that's quite an easy one. I would bench Welbeck. James, your question earlier, because I can see you put the rest of your team in. Your question before this was Thiago or Rice to start. So if I look at your team right now, James, I've lost your team. So based on your team right now, like who would I bench out of that bunch? Well, I think Van der Ven is quite an easy one to bench. Like just remind everybody of the fixtures like against Liverpool. So Klein, Timber, Cash, Foden, Saka. You've got a bench of Sanchez, Rice, Mukiele, Van der Ven. So you're going double Palace defence, but you're playing a back three, and I kind of agree with the combination that you've gone for. Klein, Timber, Cash picks itself. The midfield, and you've gone for Raul. Okay, so basically, yeah, it's Raul and Thiago against Rice. I think the fact that you've got Wilson as well, like, yeah, you can go for double. You can definitely go for double up on the Fulham attack, and that's absolutely fine. But I also think Forest aren't a bad team. So for me, it would be a case of, if I had to play it, I probably would bench Raul and I would start Rice, but I get it. I haven't really owned Raul this season, and maybe he is the play. Just to remind everybody of Raul's returns. So he's got 2 goals, 3 assists this season. Hasn't scored since the Sunderland game in 12. And his minutes are 90 at times, which is good. But of course, he did play midweek. Look, I think the double up on Fulham's absolutely fine. If I had that team, I probably would bench Raul and start Rice. But I get it. I get it. If you own Raul, you probably do want to start him. Where am I on this list? I keep losing the chat. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to catch up on the chat. Here we go. I read out Bruno Foden. Which midfielder do you think I should buy this week? That comes down to money. Let me know how much money you got available. I don't think Cunha is the player to buy this week. Cheaper alternative, Semenyo, Tavernier. I've covered that one. Chow or Richards first on bench. One of Szoboszlai or Thiago probably won't play. Yeah, so I probably, of the lot, I probably would go for... I'm tempted to say Chow because I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game against Chelsea. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. But Richards' ownership's quite large, so I'd probably go for Richards. And I'm also a Chelsea fan, it's worth noting. Lucas free hit, starting 11. Petrovic, Timber, Calaflori, O'Reilly. Okay, yeah. Foden, Bruno, Minter, Semenyo, Ekitike, Haaland, Thiago. Yeah, I don't hate that. If I look at the actual fixtures available, like, who are the teams? So, Bournemouth. Have you got a Bournemouth cover in defence? Yes. You've got Petrovic. Sweet. And you've got an attacker in Semenyo. Yes. You haven't got another attacker, but yeah. Man City, you've gone for Haaland, Foden and O'Reilly. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Cherky's also a great differential if you want to be a bit different. You've gone for Ekitike, which I like. Thiago, yeah. You've got Senesi as your alternative to come in. Yes, I can get behind that. Yeah, I think you covered off pretty much all of the main routes, to be honest with you. The only one I would say is, maybe if you're a little bit scared, go for Wilson instead of Minter. Wilson instead of Minter, just to be like, because he's got 1.3 million transfers in or something, and being on the free hit, well, you might be a bit annoyed at yourself if you don't go Wilson and he does deliver once again, and you're like, fucking, like, he's been bought by everybody. His numbers are really good, better than, well, they're not really good, but they're better than Minter's. Can I just remind people, though, buying Wilson, because I'm not a Wilson hater. Can I just say, I'm not a Wilson hater. I do think he's a good buy, but everybody gets good returns against Burnley. So look, he had 1.39 expected goal involvement against Burnley. Prior to that, his highest was 0.42 in a single game. Okay, so can we just have a bit of context? I still think Wilson's a great buy. Do not get me wrong. I still think Wilson's a good buy. Get him if you want him. But Burnley do inflate everybody. Those numbers are great. Like, let's just, I don't actually know if this is correct, but let's just do a running example. Who did Burnley play in Game Week 15? Burnley played Newcastle in Game Week 15. So, did anybody in Game Week 15 put up abnormally good numbers for their own thing? Well, I believe Gordon had a penalty, didn't he? So, that's not a good example, but obviously the numbers were good there. Bruno G, he had 0.38 against Burnley, and prior to that, his numbers were okay. But then we look at Game Week 14 as an example here. Burnley had Crystal Palace. I mean, Burnley actually done all right in Game Week 14. Game Week 13, Burnley had Brentford. And again, what was Thiago's numbers? 1.18. What I'm trying to say is, look at Dango. Dango does nothing any week. Plays Burnley, gets a 1 expected goal involvement. I bet even like, I don't even know the answer here. Damsgaard had good numbers. Yeah, look, 0.39, his best of any week. So what I'm trying to say is this. Whoever plays Burnley usually gets their best underlying numbers they've had all season. Hence why I bought Semenyo. Hence why Wilson is getting bought by everybody. Do I think Wilson will replicate those numbers? No, I don't. Is Welbeck starting? Don't know on that one, my friend. Nacho, can you do a free hit draft for this week? Bit behind on the stream, so not sure you've done it or not. So I haven't, but the free hit that's been put up by Luca is kind of what I would look towards, that sort of thing, really. You get your triple City, you get your triple Bournemouth. I think Ekatike I probably would go for. I've listened to a lot of Spurs podcasts from people who I trust, and they're not very bullish on Spurs against Liverpool at all. So yeah, I would probably lean towards the free hit that's been put in the video. If you have any questions, though, drop them in the chat. I'm looking to wildcard in Game Week 20. Should I look to get in Cherky? Well, Goat Vids, like, firstly, are you looking to... I'm going to have to... Goat Vids, I'm probably going to have to mute you. I do apologise, but I will answer your question. I was going to put you on a timeout for just 5 minutes on that one, mate, because it's a bit early for me to be getting a headache, and unfortunately you are causing that headache with those messages. I do apologise, mate. Yeah. Firstly, can I just remind people, you got to get till the Game Week 19 to use all your chips. So just a reminder here. Oh, I can't look at them anymore. I do apologise, it doesn't tell me. But Game Week 19 deadline is for your chips. So you can't use your wildcard in Game Week 20. What you'll be using is your new wildcard. You'll be using your effective second wildcard. So just remember that in your back pocket. If you've got loads and loads of chips still available to play, you've got to use them this week, the next week, and the following week. Otherwise, you lose them. Start Van Heck or Xhaka. I probably would play Van Heck. I'd play Van Heck and hope that Sunderland are coming off the top of a real big wave of emotion in that Newcastle game, and also they might take a couple of weeks just to readjust with the Africa Cup of Nations players going. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a world where there is a world where Sunderland are just so good, they just adapt once again and they play great. But I think there is going to be a bit of a transitional period for them with just losing a few key players in that team. Thiago Ekitike on a free hit. So this is a big one because my answer is going to be Ekitike. I think his ceiling's higher. Brentford played midweek, remember, as well. But the ownership of Thiago is big. And if you free hit without Thiago, you're going to kick yourself. So my answer is, like, if I took ownership out of the equation, I do like Ekitike, but I think the safe play probably is going to be Thiago, mate, on that one. Could Thomas Frank just, you know, he's playing a big game, play his traditional back five and try and basically, quote unquote, shithouse it? Yeah, I could see that. I could see that also. Just seeing again on Twitter to see if there's any news going on. There's not much. No, there's not much on there. Right, sorry guys, I was just checking Twitter to see if there was anything out there. Just for those that are joining the stream, just a heads up, my team's locked in. I'm happy to take the risk with Thiago, knowing that I've got Anderson as my first sub to come in for him. I'm absolutely fine with that. And the moves that I made was I sold Timber to O'Reilly. I discussed that at the start of the stream. I'm happy to jump on double Arsenal a bit later on and use Virgil van Dijk as my cash cow to get there. And also, I brought in Semenyo for Enzo Fernandez with the plan in place of basically just each week having a decision that I can use Semenyo as a cash cow to get to all other midfielders in the game. And also, I've got 3 transfers still available to me in game week 18. So I'm not in a position where I don't have transfers also available. That's the only reason I made those moves. Any other day, I probably would have not made the moves if I only had 1 transfer or 2 transfers available. I had 4, and that's the reason I went there. And also, currently ranked 42k. So kind of in a position right now where I'm like, now's the time to put the foot down. It's the reason why I put the triple captain on Saka last week. I thought it was a great opportunity to do so. And I really want to try and just like get as many points as I can over this Christmas period. And I think Semenyo is the route to do that. Start Welbeck or Wilson? It has to be Wilson. Wilson's got more avenues to points. And Welbeck has also been a little bit questionable going into this week about whether he's going to start or not. Start Tete or Anderson, a Forest. Oof, I don't know on that one, I'm going to be honest. I probably would lean towards Tete, but I don't really know whether he gets defensive contributions, because if he doesn't regularly, I'm going to lean towards Anderson. So Tete, in terms of attack and returns, has got 1 goal, no assists. So we're basically going off the assumption he doesn't really do it. And in terms of DEFCON, he's averaging just under 9 per 90 minutes. He's hit them in the last 3 of the last 4, which is not too bad going, to be honest with you. So with that said, I probably would go for the defender in Tete. But I also will just say, as we know, Anderson, his numbers have dropped off, by the way. Like, his numbers are not fantastic. DEFCON, though, he usually does hit it. You guys have been unfortunate not to hit it in these weeks here. Nobody gets DEFCON, by the way, against Wolves as a centre mid. I don't know if anyone knows that. I think it was the above average pod that mentioned this. Basically, if they play Wolves a team, none of the play goes through the middle. So the midfielders don't actually do anything. So it's kind of a weird scenario. So that's why he didn't get any in game week 14. But in game week 16, unusual not to get it against Spurs, but it also was a comfortable win, really, wasn't it? They probably just dominated the ball in that game. No news on Thiago, and I do apologise. I think we're in a position right now where we're just not going to get any. A reminder, the kickoff is the 3 p.m. one, so you could wait right up until the deadline and hope you get something, but I haven't really seen anything, unfortunately. Triple captain Foden, thoughts? Holly, I think the triple captain on Foden is fine. I think you are obviously going against Haaland's ownership, which is massive. I still would go for Haaland myself on penalties. I trust him a bit more, but if you're chasing rank, then I don't think there are many better alternatives to Haaland than Phil Foden. Bruno Guimaraes to Semenyo, that is a move that I personally would make. I would make that move if I could do so, but with a caveat. You're buying Semenyo with the thought of you might have to sell him once again in the near future. Now, a lot of people are saying this, including myself, about buying Semenyo and selling him once again. But my thought process was also this. If you look at Bournemouth here, they got the great game against Burnley, then they got Brentford, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, Brighton. Now, I'm going to be honest. The Chelsea game, we should have conceded against them. I think Bournemouth just have the players to hurt Chelsea. So, is it the worst case scenario in the world if injuries happen in your team after buying Semenyo and you're stuck with Semenyo for the next 3? I actually don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. So, the reason why I like Semenyo is that there's worse players to own over the Christmas period than a guy who is guaranteed 90 minutes, sometimes on penalties, and okay fixtures. So Semenyo is not a bad pick. He's not a bad guy to have stuck in your team for the longer term. Would you do something like Timber to Tarkowski next week? Have Raya in goal. We'll move back to double Arsenal defence. Yeah, so I think that's absolutely fine. I think Timber out to somebody else and then just buying the better Arsenal defender at a cheaper price. This is what I was trying to get at when I made my move of selling Timber. It isn't selling Timber because I'm against the double Arsenal defence. It's selling Timber in anticipation to just basically buy Gabriel, who's possibly 0.4 million cheaper, and I like him better from a future game perspective. So it's almost rejigging your team in preparation for Gabriel. Who shall I transfer in for Dewsbury Hall? I already have Foden, Bruno, G. Well, I think the easy answer here is Wilson if you can get there. If you need a midfielder this week, then I like that one. Otherwise, if you want a really short-term punt, I think Tavernier at Bournemouth is not too bad. But again, even more so than Semenyo, I think you'll be looking to ship him out earlier. I think Wilson can stick around in your team for a longer term. And again, I'm just checking Twitter because we have just less than an hour to the deadline. I won't be going up until the deadline. I do apologise. I'll be wrapping up beforehand. But if you have any questions, please do put them in the comments because I will try and get to all of them before we wrap it up. Just quickly checking this out. Cool. Right, what have we got? I've got a super chat here from El Chivers. Massively generous. Thank you so much, my friend, on that one. Let's try and answer this one as detailed as possible while I just quickly see if there is anything else on Twitter. There is not, it looks like. Okay. So, El Chivers asks, Wildcard 17, go and Ekitike, not Saka. 1. Rice or Sade. 2. Verbruggen plus Sanchez, ready for the run. Plus 0.4 or Raya and Dubravka. Well, so the first one, Rice or Sade, is a very simple one for me. It's Declan Rice. But you are going Declan Rice, blocking off Saka. So if you're in a position right now where you're like, I am more than happy to not go for Saka at any point, then you've got to remember that you're doing so and you're blocking yourself off Saka because you'll have a third Arsenal pick. So you've got to make sure you know that. If you go Rice and it's your third Arsenal defender player, then you can't get Saka in the future. So, but I don't love Sade as a pick, I'm going to be honest. Brentford's fixtures are fine. I just don't really like him. Then you got Verbruggen and Sanchez ready for the 2021-22 run. Yep, I think that's fine. And you have plus 0.4 million in the bank. So you've got Verbruggen and Sanchez in your team, or you're talking about going for Raya and Dubravka as the combination. Now, I do like the Verbruggen and Sanchez route, but also I do think to myself, could you just go for one of those and just keep him in long term? Like, is it the worst thing if you just get Sanchez now and just play him long term? But I get it, the rotation works. So if you go for Verbruggen and Sanchez, you got to make sure that you have double Arsenal defence available to you later down the line. So to answer it, I think if you are absolutely no on Saka, you're like, I don't want him at any point, go Rice over Sade. I then say Verbruggen, Sanchez, I like the combination, but you've got to make sure you've got the money available to then have a double Arsenal defence, or at least the way of getting double Arsenal defence now that you've blocked off the goalkeeper. I just don't think Raya is a great pick in the game. I'm kind of stuck with him. Hopefully that helped, mate. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. I'll be sure to answer it, but make sure you don't put any more super chats because that is too generous as it is. Do I think bench boosting with Goodmanson and Krupa Jr. is pointless? I think Leeds could keep a clean sheet, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's the Krupa Jr. one, which I don't know what his minutes will be, but I also think you just need to get the bench boost out of the way. So each and every week that passes, if Krupa Jr. is still going to be part of your bench boost, what better time to play it than against Burnley? So I probably would just get out of the way then. No news on Thiago, I do apologise. And no, I don't do team reviews, but I do over on Patreon because that is where we do like the personal stuff. So check that out if you want to, but I don't do them on stream, unfortunately. You can drop your team in and I'll try and answer it, but I don't do like deep dive because it's quite hard off the top of the head to kind of go through a specific team. Bench Van Dijk or Mark Gahey. Oh, see, I'm playing both of those. I would be tempted to... I don't know why, I've got this feeling Van Dijk's going to score, so I probably would bench Gahey, but it's crazy to say that because Crystal Palace's ownership is so big and Gahey's been so consistent. So I think the logical pick is bench Van Dijk, but I think it's close. I'll try and play both. I'm looking to wildcard in game week 20. Should I look to bring in Cherky or Cunha? With your wildcard in game week 20, I'd rather have Cherky this week, so it probably would be Cherky. Cunha is more of a game week 19 player, it seems. All right, actual triple captain Foden versus West Ham, Ekitike versus Wolves, or Fernandes versus Wolves. Wow. So my problem with holding your triple captain off for Ekitike is that I don't even know if he's going to start against Wolves. He might start the Spurs game and then Isak starts the Wolves game. We don't really know what the answer is there. But what you could do is almost triple captain in preparation for that, knowing that you've got Bruno as a backup option. I think it's really close. I probably would always want to go for the penalty taker, so I probably would lean towards Bruno Fernandes. Because he's a penalty taker. But look, if you want to play it this week against Foden, I don't mind it at all. The reason why I'm saying Bruno as your triple captain is that if you look at the fixtures, game week 19, Haaland's away against Sunderland. So, like, there is a world where you could take on. So, like, what you're saying is, like, who do I captain that week? So, if you go triple captain Foden in 17, you're taking on Haaland, which is brave. It's really brave. So, the reason why I'm saying almost Bruno in 19 is that, or Ekitike in 18, is Haaland's away against Forest and then he's away against Sunderland. I prefer taking on Haaland in those 2 weeks than this week. So, I would almost maybe captain Haaland this week and then triple in one of these two and really take on Haaland in those ones where I think the fixture actually caters towards maybe Haaland not going crazy like he could in this week. Right, guys. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap it up there. So that's me locked in. I'm not going to do anything else. Even if Thiago's ruled out and we get the news 5 minutes before the deadline, I can sleep easy at night, knowing that I've got Anderson as my first sub for my team. So that's me locked in. I don't really have a decision for the team. The fact that Crystal Palace rested all of their players, I'm content on going for Richards to start over Anderson. And I think Richards is as good for defensive contributions. So that's the team. I'll have 3 free transfers in game week 18 to pivot towards whatever team I need to do so. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. On your way out, if you could drop a like, hit that subscribe button, it's always massively appreciated. There's a lot of people live right now, so make sure you check them out if you need your questions answered. But thanks so much for tuning in to my stream. Massively appreciated, and I will see you probably on Sunday for a bit of a recap video on what has happened, because most of the games would have been played by then. So have a great one, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.